Okay, Manny. Who are we probing today? Oh, come on, Manny. You said I could probe somebody.
Okay, this is UFO Buster Radio, UFO report number 78, and welcome back. Today is Friday, December 22nd. 3 more days left for Christmas. I hope you guys got your shopping in. I'm even considering doing a Christmas evening live episode, just because I've got nothing better to do. And, as they say, why the hell not? Who knows what's going to happen on Christmas Day? At this point, Pentagon. Tom DeLonge. Anyway, before we get into the news articles today, because they're going to run into each other, because it still has to do with the blowback from what is Pentagon nonsense. Story that broke recently. I did want to go back to something I mentioned earlier. We had the 2017 rubber dickies. Congratulations, Stan Romanek. But I said that we'd be able to include any messages that any one of you would like to include. We'll type it up nice and neat and stick it in with the award, the rubber dickie itself. But I never gave you guys an avenue to get that information to me. So, if you want to include a message to Stan the Rubber Dicker Romanek, you can email Manny, MANNY, at UFOBusterRadio.com and just let me know what you want to include. You probably don't want to write War and Peace for this because it's just a common thing, so don't include anything too long because you want to leave room for everybody else that wants to give old Stan a message. And, and there's a couple of you out there who are going to be really nice about it and tell him how bad you feel about his situation and wish you were there and to console him and things like that, to, run blockade for whatever comes in the other end. But some of you will be pretty honest and frank about the whole thing. And either way, whatever the message is, we're going to include it. And depending on how many we get, we might even read some of them on one of the podcasts before the end of the year. So we got that out the way. Let's get into the news articles because apparently this whole reporting regarding the Pentagon and their secret little UFO investigation is still continuing to be challenged right now, right? So we have people on one side who are saying that this is a false flag operation. Hint, hint. The one person that's been talking about false flag operations of this nature has been Stephen Greer, the reptilian man. Stephen Greer. The ER doctor. No more. That Greer. And what's funny is that it really is playing out the way he claims it would be. And this is so weird. So either he's a psychic or maybe he knows what he's talking about. Is this the one thing that Greer knows about that we might be saying in the next few months or a couple years from now? Damn, that fucking Greer was on the money. Could it be? I invite you guys to go in there and go check all the stuff that Greer's been saying about this false flag operation and how the government, the secret cabal is going to control things and make things just look perfect. Like there's going to be an outside threat to the planet from somewhere 4.2 far. And that's how they're going to build a case for basically what you're seeing right now. This is the groundwork for Greer's fabled false flag operation. But some of you might be thinking, it's a coincidence. There's just no way he would have known that. It just happens to fall in, A, B, and C perfectly. But that's it. Nothing else is going to come of it. It's not going to be the way Greer said. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see because it's pretty fascinating. We could be seeing it live right now. But we have an article coming from Scientific American. I think this is the first one we ever do from Scientific American. And the title is The Truth About Those Alien Alloys in the New York Times UFO Story. Now, they say the truth, but unfortunately, the article itself really doesn't give you anything true based on what's being reported about those alloys out in Las Vegas somewhere. So Scientific American pretty much is saying that when that story published back on December 16th by the New York Times, revealing that the U.S. Department of Defense had between 07 and 12 funded $22 million in order to investigate UFOs. And you know what I found out that was interesting is that the predominantly, or almost all of these UFO incidents that they were looking at were coming from military personnel. Hence the video that we saw from that F-18 Hornet. However, the three things that were covered, one of them, it didn't appear in every single article or every single rewrite of the original New York Times article, and that is that there were a group of buildings in Las Vegas that apparently had stockpiles of alloys and other materials that the government was investigating and researching because they believed that these things were associated with these UFOs. And really, they don't even call it UFOs. They call it aerospace threats, aerial threats from aerospace. I don't know what the hell. It's something like that, AARP. Maybe that's really what it is. So one of the authors from the Times, by the name of Ralph Blumenthal, he said that on MSNBC that there were scientists that were looking at these materials because the objects themselves, or the material, whatever, had properties that they thought they were kind of amazing. And they had some technological properties to these objects that really they couldn't explain. And they had no idea what they were. One of the things that they were saying, according to Blumenthal, is that the alloys of these metals could not be identified. And that in and of itself is causing quite a commotion. There's apparently a bunch of metallurgists and chemists that are speaking out on the whole report about the alloys. According to them, it is impossible for anyone in the science community today that deals with these types of alloys or any kind of alloys on planet Earth that cannot identify what the properties of the alloy is. In fact, they're saying that because alloys are made up of several different metals, there is no way that they cannot identify some of the metals within that alloy. So, of course, these individuals are saying that this is a bullshit claim, it's not real, that there's just no way that those particular alloys cannot be fully identified. And you know what? If these are coming from 4.2 far, what is the possibility then that the metals that make up the alloy are not exactly ones that we know? But the problem is that we don't know what is holding up the scientific research on these alloys because we don't know what they are. So basically, you're kind of stuck in the middle here. There is no answer. As usually when it comes to ufology, nobody has a clear answer. So we know there's some kind of metals, alloys, or whatever sitting in Las Vegas somewhere. We don't know what they are, but we know that people are standing around in white coats scratching their asses. But we don't know what they are, and now we have people who are so-called experts dealing with alloys who are calling bullshit, but they have no idea what these idiots over there in Las Vegas are dealing with. But this is the kind of stuff this Pentagon story is, drumming up these days. It's completely crazy. But the crazy is not enough. We have a lot of crazy here in the States. A lot of people wanted to, jump on the bandwagon here and try to, call all kind of stuff on that Pentagon story. But apparently it's not everywhere. It's very funny that a few days after this broke, there are quite a few countries around the world that didn't even hear this story. And many really don't give a shit. There's a story right now out of China. And apparently this one is titled, "Is Anyone Out There? The Days When UFO Fever Gripped China." And the reason why they're saying this is because after this Pentagon story came out and finally made it to China, the people in China don't give a shit. They really could care less. Now, it's a pretty cool article because it kind of takes you through the heyday of UFOs in China. And it starts with an individual who grew up in the 80s. He's currently in his late 40s. And he was caught up in that UFO craziness in China back in the day. He said he used to read tons of articles and he really was looking forward to an encounter with a UFO. And at the age of 25, back in 1993, he felt the aliens actually contacted him spiritually. His experience was apparently driven by a flood of sightings that took over the country back in that time frame. Historically, it looks like the interest in UFOs exploded back in the 1970s and peaked about 2 decades later in the 1990s in China. Today, people in China just don't care. There's very few people in China that even care to read an article relating about UFOs or anything like that. The individual that this article is primarily about, their experience back during the heyday, he's actually hopeful. He's hopeful that the Pentagon story would actually maybe catch some fire out there, get people interested in UFOs, and maybe even get the country of China to release some of their own information of what they're looking at, because he's pretty sure there's just no way that the country of China is not looking into UFOs at all. He says that there hasn't been a breakthrough report of sightings in years, but yet he's still hopeful. He feels that because human beings are always curious about the universe, that it is highly unlikely that the entire country of China will just say fuck it to UFOs and not worry about them at all. There's still something there for them to hold on to, but this is kind of evidence of what's happening here. For the most part, if people are out there chatting, for the most part, people who are not into ufology are not talking about this. The people there are talking to people who are like-minded, and so the conversation in a way continues, but it's still closed to that community. So if you go in and you talk to Tom, Dick, and Harry next week or the week after, this Pentagon story is gone. It never existed. And that's what's going to happen, which is perfect for a false flag operation, right? If you're trying to do something major, you throw it out there little by little, knowing that eventually people will go about their normal lives and not really give a shit one way or another. This is what I think is going to happen. This is going to go away. And then we'll get another shot from someone to kind of keep us enticed, kind of keep us intrigued into what it's going to turn out to be. But you guys already know that just this year, we had the announcement of the Space Corps. What a coincidence. This has been the report of the UFO News, number 78. Follow us on Facebook, Manny Moonraker, Facebook page, UFO Buster Radio, Facebook page, Instagram at Manny Moonraker, and Twitter at UFO Buster Radio. Don't forget, if you want to make some comments, to send to the Rubber Dicker Stan Romanek, the 2017 Rubber Dicker of the Year, to include with his Rubber Dicky, send it to Manny at UFOBusterRadio.com. Have a safe holiday. Peace.